So now let me move to Mr. Lakshman, coming from the veteran banking point of view. So as a banker, as a finance person, from the banking and finance perspective, Lakshman, how would you look at this transformation from survival to success in managing post-COVID-19 pandemic? You can look from the banker's point of view as well as your sometimes the struggling client's point of view, from both. Over to you, Lakshman.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Thanks, PIMA Alumni Association President and the membership for inviting me. It's a great opportunity to interact with you. I do not know whether the last two series that you had, whether there was any financial representation, but assuming that there wasn't anything that I would like to talk. Financial sector is something that it is close to anybody's heart, actually. There is no one who's not dealing with a bank other than a little kid. Even a kid is doing some banking with savings products and various other things that are happening. So in that light, I believe that the impact is great if you really look at it as a nation and to the general public who are dealing with the banking community. But when you look at from the banking side, financing side, this is not the first occasion that we had seen a pandemic, a situation like this. 30 years civil war, we went through toughest times in the country, but banks still operated, actually. That is the irony of that. So the bankers are used to of these turmoil situations, but how would I differentiate previous occasions to the one that we are facing today? The previous occasions, the enemies were known, and we knew how to manage those things, and the security forces of the country, the government helped the banking community as to manage those challenges that we faced at that time. But this pandemic is an unknown thing. So therefore, I think bankers first took a step, and if I talk about the DFCC Bank itself, that our strategy was first to protect our staff members, because banking is something that everybody is looking for. All customers do approach the bank and they want to deal with the bank. I mean, that is the nature of general banking systems in Sri Lanka. So therefore, our challenge first was to survive, to keep the people safe, not to get any staff members of the banking community exposed to this unknown thing. So therefore, I think one of the learnings that we got it from this exercise is generally banking is known that people interaction, face-to-face conversation is important. But in this time that we were forced to send the staff to work from home. Generally banking you can't do from home. Generally you have to be in the physical locations. But this time we were able to plan out, send the staff on rotation, get the people to work from home, and that kind of management that we handled. And in spite of that, when people actually wanted money for their expenses, our guys actually went through mobile networks to doorsteps to deliver the cash that is required from the customers. Now, that is also a new phenomena that we had not seen in the past. Customers do come to the banking ATMs or network or internet banking to do transactions. So mobile services that we have started providing to customers was one thing, something new that happened. Secondly, second category of the stakeholders that we were keen to look after is our clients, as you said, Professor. All banks are having SME, large-scale entrepreneurs, then they have the individual clients. So it's a big challenge, because generally banks are expecting the customers to make payments, the people who had obtained their loans from the banks. And also the deposit holders do want their interest to survive, the monthly payments to collect. So these are few challenges that we faced in this time. And there were some some systems were introduced by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka to provide some relief measures to the customers. So as a result, the customers of this country have been given time to make payments for the next 2 months. Actually, they are expected to make the payments by about 30th. Some category of people have given time till 30th of September to settle the dues to the bank. But now the biggest challenge that what we see is after 4 weeks or 5 weeks of lockdown, the people are now started operating, start coming up to start their business operations. So that's a big challenge that we are facing. I know when you look at even whether it is big or small, everybody are having some kind of liquidity problems right at the moment. For 5 weeks, if a small entrepreneur does not have their sales up and going, definitely the working capital they don't have. So therefore, now the banking community is now getting ready to provide the assistance to those customers. Already, there are about 10,000 customers have made applications to our bank. I am told that about 50,000 customers have been had approached the banking community to start their working capital requirements. So SME is a sector which gets seriously impacted in a situation like this, and we are fully committed to support the SME sector with these moratoriums, additional working capital, and also to give some guidance for these guys to come up with their business enterprises. And I know the challenges that they are facing are immense. And whatever I think that during our discussions, I can explain few things that we are doing, but those are the things that we will be doing. So the second segment is that first the employees, second the entrepreneurs, third is our shareholders and the stakeholders. So we have actually a large number of shareholders, investors, not in terms of equity, but there are foreign investors, there are foreign credit suppliers to Sri Lanka banking. So they are all concerned about the banking at this moment of time. So I think we have big challenges to face, provided actually some of the things that are now implemented are coming through. I think we will be able to face this situation. But as a leader, what we did, actually, at this moment of time, we'll have to look at what our strategies are, whether those strategies, what we set out about 5-6 years ago or at the beginning of this year, whether those strategies are prevalent. We need to look at what kind of changes that we can do, re-examine, realign our strategies to the present situation, look at the future for the next few months, and look at that. Also, after developing the strategies, we need to also look at the structures. We traditionally had the structures of the banking community in a different way. I think this is a new normal that we have come through. So as a result, I think we are also in the process of reorganizing, restructuring our organization structures and see how well that we can align the structures to the new requirements of the country. And also in the meantime, we also had to look at the processes and systems that we have implemented. The processes and systems that were available prior to COVID-19 is not going to be the same for after COVID-19 is over. So therefore, I think we are looking at the new ways and means of doing things, and also look at the systems and everything as a new phenomena. So those are the few things, Professor, that I can explain to you what we had gone through in the last 5 weeks. But I think a lot more to come in the next 6 months, I believe. So the banking will be in the full formal in the next 6 months. So I can take up any questions coming up thereafter. So thank you for giving this morning.
So with that, let me turn to Lakshman once again. Lakshman, there are interesting questions coming up. So again, Jayumi mentioned this. So let me put it straight to you, the digital divide. Now we talk about digital banking, online banking, internet banking, virtual wallet, and so on. But still, there's a lot of community in Sri Lanka who prefer the brick and mortar. Some even remove their slippers in getting into a bank branch in a rural area. For them, they have a sense of gratitude that this is the place where they keep my money safe. The traditional, respectful mindset towards a bank branch. How do you look at in bridging this digital divide? With all the technologies, with all the advancements, do we still have a gap, rural versus urban? How would you look at as a veteran bank?
That's a great question, Professor. I myself, in my 32 years career, I have experienced this. In fact, about a few years ago, when this transformational journey into digital was happening, we were trying to transform in small ways. Just to elaborate an example, we Sri Lankans, whether in Colombo or outstations, are used to, when you make a deposit with a bank, you wanted the fixed deposit certificate into your hand, and you keep it, that certificate. And when you go to ATMs and you see, it's something that is unique everywhere. you find that in an ATM, if you really look at the slips that are thrown into the waste paper basket and compare that with the number of transactions you see, the number of transactions are less than the inquiries that the customers have made. So that simply shows that the customers do really are still into brick and mortar banking, and they are not actually are still not comfortable, if I would say, of getting into digital or distant banking, if I call. But I think COVID-19, some of the good things that happened in the COVID-19 is that the people were forced to use the non-traditional banking methodologies to do transactions. As Flona and Jayami mentioned, some of the clients were forced to do the internet banking. Although they had the internet banking facilities to do transactions, they were not willing to do that. So that is something that unique happened in the recent past. I think going forward, although you very well explained in the urban, regional, rural areas where the banks are considered as sacred places by the community. So I think, but still, with the new technology coming in and various other new norms that are coming in, I think people are getting used to this. With the pandemic, the people have been now asked to have different practices in life, social distancing. When they use electronic equipment, how do they have to use it? Common ATMs, even the banks. Now we are now expected to have a more clean environment for banking transactions and for people to come and wash their hands before they use the ATM. And we are now forcing. Actually, we see that traction in the last 2 months in our bank itself. A large number of people moving from traditional banking to digital banking, and I believe this norm will continue to happen, and it will actually force the customers to get into more and more digital banking. And also the bank's point of view, now we have got used to mobile devices, mobile instrument, mobile systems. I think the banks will come out with more and more new products, and they will be given to the customers to serve. Even mobile banking is going to be the day. I mean, it's going to happen. It had happened in the last 5 weeks, and it's going to happen in a large scale in the near future. When it comes to the work lifestyle of bankers also, it's going to change. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, bankers were not used to work from home. They used to come to office and work. Now, with VPN connections, we have given most important work to be done from home. The people are now working from home while maintaining the secrecy. And bank transactions, then the people have got used to working for roster times. And even we are looking at actually all this time, banks were having extended banking, weekend bankings. I think they are not going to be the ones that after the COVID-19 comes to normality. So I believe we will be pushing and we will be requesting all the customers to do more digital banking. And this year, before the COVID-19 came in, Central Bank came this year, they named 2020 as electronic banking year, digital banking year. And Central Bank is spearheading that program, and they are pushing all banks to get to QR, credit card, internet banking, digital payment structures. So I think banks are also forced by the regulator to do that, and customers will be invariably will be forced to get into that norm of transactions.
So with that, let me turn to Lakshman. Lakshman, there are a couple of questions. So one is something very intriguing. How do we manage clients not taking advantage of the announced relief packages? Do we monitor how they are performing? Can a bank go out of the way to help a struggling entrepreneur? 3 questions, you can combine the 2. So in other words, how do you have the empathy? I think Jayami or Fiona mentioned the word empathy. How do you empathize with the struggling entrepreneur and not from a rigid banking rules and regulation? Is there a way to become more flexible? And I think this is a dire need for many SMEs right now, and central bank is trying to play a mediating role in this whole context. But from a bank's point of view, you need to survive, you need to succeed. At the same time, how do you hold hand with a struggling entrepreneur?
I do agree, Professor, because if banks to survive, customers had to be there. So we had to be empathized with we had to be empathetic about the customers,
Sure.
what they do and all that. And that is why I mentioned at the beginning, the strategies that what we changed. After the COVID pandemic, we decided that our strategy of going for a bigger expansion programs, high growth patterns that we planned in January this year, we had to be relooked at. So what we have thought is, what we have identified is, what are our priorities? Our priorities are to make these entrepreneurs come back again to normal business, and people who are struggling has to be given a hand and to take them over a period of time to see that they do business very well. So therefore, I think, as I mentioned to you previously as well, we have actually changed the pattern of working. Now, earlier, any banker would have had a growth plan for the next couple of months and ended up with a growth percentage of about 20 to 25% of their portfolio. I strongly believe, Sri Lankan banks are not going to have that kind of a growth pattern this year. They will do only the maintenance work. When I say maintenance, they will have to spend a hell of a lot of time with all these entrepreneurs to make sure that those people's problems are addressed. And one of the questions I think one of the viewers is asking, how would we prevent them misusing the facilities offered by the banks? This is part and parcel of our banking game. We need to be close to the customers. We need to identify their needs. So therefore, it's not going to be that easy like what we did in the past. Our working patterns are changing. So we need to get more close to customers, collect data, information, visit customers, regularly observe their pattern of work. How do they do business? What are their traditional difficulties that they face? In fact, some of our customers are facing off collections for the last 6 months. So how are they going to overcome those issues? And all those things we have streamlined. I think most banks would spend a lot of time in rehabilitating, restructuring, helping customers, and that cannot be done through the branch network. So therefore, even my bank, we have devoted a large number of head office staff whose experience in these matters, put it into regions, and they have been asked to go and deal with these customers and make sure those customers are up and running on their feet. So I think also one more single point about central bank's relief program that had come up this time. They are also very specific as to how that we disperse the money, for what requirements should we disperse the money. And we are also collecting documentary evidences to make sure those funds are not misused by the customers. And I believe Sri Lankan entrepreneurs has to think the banks are their partners in progress. So they should not actually hide facts with the banks, and they have to be very realistic. They have to come out with the realistic issues that they have. I think banks will be more willing to and helpful to do the customers come back to their normal.
Thank you, Lakshman. So let me connect you to another question while you are doing the thought sharing. Ironically, you use a tagline of a competitive bank, partners in progress. That's an interesting sign of synergy. So coming back, the question is, some banks came up with innovative ideas like collaborating with taxi services to provide banking services at doorsteps. So why didn't DFCC come up with such a strategy?
I think DFCC, we started the move first, Professor. We are the first to launch the virtual wallet in Sri Lanka, a cashless transaction process. We are one of the first banks to come in with the QR implementation. So, and also the mobile banking facilities that have been provided to the customers, we were first to move around. And for your information, actually, we are the first to launch a product for SME category. Which is actually over 20,000 customers in Sabaragamuwa region, something called TIPSA, where a tea small holder, traditionally tea small holder has to carry their tea green leaf to the factory, deliver it, get the money from there, wait till the factory owner makes a payment. We have introduced a technology for the last 1.5 years. It's working now. Over 20,000 customers are doing that. And they, the tea factory owner goes and collects the green leaf from the doorstep of the customer. And it is electronically converted and get into our banking systems. Automatically, the owner credits the money to their account, and the the green leaf supplier immediately can go to the closest ATM and withdraw the money. And now we are providing the mobile cash dispensers. So the customers do not have to come to the ATM. Our service guys will be there just to disburse the money to their hands. So these kind of technologies have been introduced. I think a lot more things are to come. I think within the next 2 months, you will see what DFCC also will introduce.
Lakshman, what is your one sentence advice to the business community?
Thank you, Professor, giving me the last time. My final thing, as a bank, we are doing analyzing, strategizing, and to realize. That's what we are right at the moment doing. As you correctly mentioned, we are taking the top employees, the clients, the stakeholders. So my last message to all watching is that think through confidently, deliver to realize. That's my statement for success.
Think through confidently and deliver to realize.